Welcome to the Morning Report, a production of fightbackmedia.com, the number one source of urban conservative information in America.
Well, good morning and welcome to the Morning Report. My name is Willie Lawson. Over the weekend, something happened. It may end up being the Great China Reset. Let's go ahead and talk about it. You've tuned into the Morning Report from fightbackmedia.com, fightbackmedia.com, fightbackmedia.com. My name is Willie Lawson. This is Monday, May 12th, and the big story rolling out is the seismic shift in global economics. The United States and China have agreed to what some are calling a total reset on trade. President Trump, the master of the hard bargain, seems to have done it again. But what's really in the deal? And what does that mean for the average American family? Let's break it down. So here's what happened in Geneva. 2 days of high-stakes meeting in Geneva between Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Trade Representative Jameson Greer, and Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng, I guess is his name. Okay, excuse me if I mispronounce your name. Some of the most contentious economic issues between the world's two largest economies. It's being called a reset, but it's also a recalibration of strength, priorities, and national resolve. All right. Here's one of the first things, because this is obviously the most contentious thing, and where a lot of you are just getting into this. The first on the docket is tariff reductions, because we have been told, we continue to be told now, that the worst thing in the entire world that could have happened is tariffs. Not that we are continuing to have this deficit in trade to countries that absolutely hate us, but tariffs. Forget that these other countries have been charging massive tariffs on U.S. products forever. But when we talk about tariffs, when Trump talks about tariffs, not we, but when Trump talks about tariffs, it's suddenly a bad thing. It's suddenly the worst thing. I mean, not even a bad thing, but the worst thing, right? So here's the deal. Well, the past 2 years, both countries have levied heavy tariffs on each other's goods. Over 145% from the U.S. on Chinese imports, and 125% from China in retaliation. So, under this new agreement, the U.S. will roll back tariffs on roughly $300 billion worth of Chinese goods, including consumer electronics, textiles, and machine parts. So now when you start hearing, oh, everything is going to be so much more, well, not if China does what they're supposed to do. China, in return, will reduce tariffs on U.S. agricultural products, automobiles, and industrial equipment. Maybe. This move is expected to ease pressure on American importers and reduce prices for consumers. Think cheaper smartphones, appliances, and clothing. Like the brand new webcam that I'm doing this program on was $14. And it looks pretty good, doesn't it? It's pretty clear, pretty clean. But would it have been so bad if it was $20? If that would have protected an American company? No, not at all. We just don't think long-term enough, I guess. All right. This is really important. Access to agricultural and energy markets. Next, expanded access to Chinese markets. For years, American farmers and energy producers have been blocked or heavily restricted from competing in China. The New Deal opens major lanes. China said they will now permit significantly higher quotas of U.S. soybeans, beef, and dairy imports. So that's really a win for the American heartland. U.S. liquefied natural gas, LNG, and crude oil exports will face fewer regulatory hurdles, making the U.S. a preferred supplier as China diversifies away from Russian and Middle Eastern sources. Now, I'm not saying that this is that China is going to, abide by all these things, because what China is really good at doing is making these agreements and then throwing up the big yellow finger, right? Now, think about this though. More jobs and revenue for rural America, oil-rich states like Texas, North Dakota, Alaska, and a significant blow to Chinese reliance on hostile regimes. We talk about, they talk about, Trump's relationship with Vladimir Putin. You just imagine if there was some way to move China off of Russian oil onto U.S. oil. That doesn't bankrupt Russia, but it puts a pretty big hitch in their giddy up, doesn't it? How cool would that be? All right. This episode of the Morning Report is brought to you by 7 Weeks Coffee. Bold roast, even bolder values. Every bag supports pro-life centers across the U.S. Brew your morning with purpose at 7weekscoffee.com. At 7 Weeks Coffee, every sip defends life. We give 10% of every sale to pro-life pregnancy centers across America. Drink coffee with conviction, because your brew should stand for something. Now, this is really, really important, because China is known for this. A lot of U.S. companies, especially startups, will start building their brand new product in China. Now, what will happen is they'll take that technology to these factories in China where there are Chinese workers. Not all of them are there to just get a paycheck. Some of them are there to find out if the intellectual property that's being produced there is something that China could use. And there is massive theft of intellectual property. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And what a lot of us already know is that a lot of the fentanyl, most of the fentanyl, that comes across the Mexican border has its origin in China. So hopefully this portion of this deal, one of the most consequential provisions, involves China's their promise, oh Lord, to crack down on two long-term standing issues: the intellectual property issue and the fentanyl exports. China has agreed to allow real-time audits and third-party verification of its domestic IP enforcement processes. They will establish new penalties for firms caught stealing trade secrets from U.S. companies. Now, hopefully what that won't do is make U.S. companies lax and say, oh, it's going to be fine now. There was a phrase that came out of the 70s from Henry Kissinger: trust but verify. On fentanyl, Beijing will officially designate fentanyl and its analogs as controlled substances under national law. They will permit U.S. drug enforcement officials to collaborate with Chinese authorities on tracking illicit supply chains. At least that's what they say. Now, this is more than symbolism. It's a matter of national security and public health. If China follows through, follows through, this could save thousands of lives and billions of dollars in lost revenue. Here's something else that we don't talk about, that a lot of people don't know about. For years, China has been accused of manipulating its currency to make exports cheaper and imports more expensive. This deal aims to put a stop to that. Both countries have agreed to abide by International Monetary Fund rules on currency transparency. China will maintain a more stable yen, I think it's yen, and report interventions in its foreign exchange markets. The U.S. will refrain from labeling China a currency manipulator as long as they remain compliant. So in this particular instance, the U.S. decided that, okay, we'll stop calling you that as long as you stop doing that. A stable exchange rate means fewer economic shocks and more predictable costs for U.S. businesses that rely on imports or exports. Okay, now you can support this segment with our friends from Mammoth Nation. It's America's first marketplace. Shop from patriotic vendors and enjoy deep discounts when you join the herd at mammothnation.com. Are you tired of funding woke corporations? At Mammoth Nation, shop American-owned businesses that share your values. Get exclusive member-only deals that pay for themselves. All right. The big picture here, and this is super important, and the political impact of all of this. For Trump, this is vindication of the tariff strategy that many critics once mocked. Now, I understand a lot of, I've got some comments here on YouTube and the like and TikTok that I don't obviously understand how tariffs work. And I don't think most people do. But I also believe that tariffs have been used in one way for a long, long time. I also think that tariffs have not been used in this way. And the economy in the world is different than it's ever been. When the early part of the 1900s, when America survived on tariffs, before the government survived on income tax. I think that the world is much different, and the world's marketplaces are much different. There was no China in the early 1900s supplying goods to everybody. There was no Middle East supplying the world energy. Well, things are different than they were 100 years ago or 150 years ago. And maybe this tariff strategy, which seems to be working. We saw a deal with the UK this past week, and this weekend we see the beginnings of a deal with China. And it's all based on Trump's tariff strategy. There's no way around it. There is no way around it. There's no way around it. Now, for American workers and industries, this is a chance to compete on more equal footing. And for the global economy, it marked a shift away from chaos toward negotiated order. Maybe. Only if China sticks to their side of the bargain. But let's be clear. The deal's success hinges on one thing: enforcement. China's track record isn't very good. Remember the 2020 Phase 1 deal? Promises made, compliance, spotty at best. All right. This deal is progress, but it reflects strength leverage and the power of America putting its interests first. For the average American, the hope is cheaper goods, more jobs, safer streets, fairer competition. Now we're just going to sit and wait to see if the promises become reality. Now, they're not going to happen tomorrow. And that's the thing. Media is going to make you think that they should happen tomorrow. That all this should happen tomorrow. By the end of the week, things will be so different that you won't recognize it. No, this is playing the long game. This is something that the rest of the world does very well that the United States has not done well. Thanks to American media, thanks to American politics, that we have lived election cycle to election cycle. This is a long game. This is the 5, 10, 15, 20-year plan. This is, let's use the words that the left uses all the time. This is about sustainability. So now we have to wait and see. Now we have to make sure that China holds their part of the bargain. My name is Willie Lawson. This has been a Morning Report. The Morning Report is a production of FightBackMedia.com, 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 and FightBackMediaTV.com. So please subscribe to us here on YouTube and on Rumble and on Spreaker for the audio side of all of these, where it's just audio. So maybe you can listen to it in your car and you don't have to have, YouTube or Rumble going on your dashboard. It's really not very safe, really. Again, please support our mission through Patreon/Morning Report. Remember, just like always, stay strong, stay informed, and as always, stay free. Bye-bye now.